Do you want to start talking about our top 10s?
Oh yeah, sure. I think also I've got things to add about animation.
Yeah.
Within my top 10s, but I think I haven't rated my honourable mentions. But I'll go through a few. One of them I'm gonna say I didn't put in mainly for the fact that it's kind of cheating, but I think it's an amazing animated movie still. That's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The attention to detail that went into that movie, like how, if you look at a lot of old animated films where real people are interacting with animation, is that it never looks right based upon the eye lines. And so in Roger Rabbit, they made sure that they'd film the live action actors and then draw the cartoons in separately.
Yeah.
But they'd make sure that the eye line of the cartoon and the actors were perfectly level at all times.
Yeah.
And the animation's incredible. I looked at how they actually drew it on and the amount of layers that went into each single frame. And there's a scene, I saw this all in the video, I should probably add. It's a really good video by Captain Christian, I think is his name, on YouTube.
Yeah, very good channel.
Do you see that channel? Yeah. Basically where...
I should probably not nod on an audio, but yes, I have seen that.
Where there's a scene when he's holding a cartoon rabbit and he knocks a light and the light's going all across the room. And so obviously the light levels in people's faces and on the rabbit is going to change consistently. And every frame they have to change the fucking light levels on their face. I can't imagine the amount of time it must have taken. It's so incredible. Also the way that they don't move on one axis, the cartoons, they move, in all manner of ranges, not just up and down or left to right.
Yeah.
It's such an impressive, incredible movie, which...
Yeah, it does
I think maybe it needs to get... Maybe not enough people talk about it. I think
it's pretty popular. I think it's not easy to find in a category. So, like, people make top 10 animated films and people make top 10 films, and I feel as if maybe because it's a little bit harder to define, people don't maybe talk about it as much than it should. But I've seen plenty of people talk about it.
I think maybe it's craft. People admit it's a good movie, but I think the craft behind it is such intricate and impressive that maybe it deserves more.
What was it? I completely forgot about a topic I did want to talk about. Are any of the really old Disney films on your list?
No.
Me neither. They're brilliant, but why are they not? Like, I was thinking about this. It's like, people think about Pinocchio.
Because they're pretty groundbreaking at the time, and they still tell like a good story, but at the same time, they're not incredibly complex.
Yeah.
Also, because if you look at the original stories, like the Brothers Grimm's tales, very, very sort of dirty. Like, do you know the original Cinderella?
Yeah, like
where they cut off bits of their feet and stuff to get in these slippers. It's very... I can't think of a word for it.
Yeah.
Just, it's not the happy, jolly Disney which Walt Disney also wanted to portray.
Well, what I would say is that... the reason I'm bringing it up is just because it's interesting that they are foundational. Well, they created animation as a thing, like, really, as a film medium, and they're not on our list, and it's kind of like they deserve a shout out, but I feel as if we're not of that generation. Things age, they don't just necessarily
I
age
watched
well.
a lot of... I've got like tapes.
I was a kid as well.
I've got
I watched films I did watch.
I watched tons as a kid, so I have a lot. I enjoy pretty much all of them.
Yeah,
but they're not something I'd say is the best. Animations have come so much further in 100 years.
They're timeless as well, though.
They are pretty timeless. But I think because they teach kids good morals and good lessons, that parents always going to be like, hey, well, until Disney fucking remakes all of them.
If you want to go on a trip, just watch like fucking John Peterson analyse them for 3 fucking hours.
Wait, what?
He analysed the Lion King. Oh, the Lion King's not an old one. Pinocchio. What was the other one? Oh no, Pinocchio's kind of the main one. It got like a fucking 3-hour analysis on his fucking channel. Like, Jesus Christ, I'm not even that sad to watch that. Jesus.
I feel for a movie podcast we mention him way too often.
I know. Sorry, he's a pop culture thing at the moment, and he's like, I don't know.
So that's one that you have that you want to mention.
I kind of want to run through them because we're not going to have time. Like, the top 10 is really what I want to get to.
Okay.
So I want to point out about my list, though. I would say I made a top 21 list, and 21 was really just because I happened to watch 7 movies, and a particular amount of them really shone for me, so I kind of added them. But my kind of 11 recommendations are I've talked about it before. Kung Fu Panda 2, Akira.
Tell me that didn't make your list.
No, it didn't. No.
I can't
this is the
I
thing.
can't believe it.
It got fucking. It got knocked. I said it was in my top 10, and it isn't. It's 11th on my list. Oh, and also there's an element of it might have been if I was completely organic, but I've talked about it previously. So it's like, how much more can I say about that film? Akira.
I like Akira. I don't like it enough to wear.
Maybe
if I watched the original Japanese version.
I particularly enjoyed it. The Lion King.
I like The Lion King. That's
I really love it.
That's all I sort of go. It's kind of like, yeah, that's a good movie. Nothing particularly I don't like about it, but isn't blowing me away.
That's fair. I can kind of see that because it's a particular kind of story. I quite liked it. It felt quite mythical, kind of quite.
It's Hamlet.
Yeah,
it's just Hamlet
well,
with lions.
It's not though. It's Hamlet, and that kind of story pulls at a particular kind of, I would say, archetypal type of story. Like the kind of uncle betraying the father thing isn't exclusive to Hamlet.
It's the ghost of the dad talking to him, saying you must.
Yeah, but that doesn't even happen in the same way though. It's not
true. But
I don't know. It isn't Hamlet because Hamlet is a tragedy. And ends with Hamlet going mental and dying. Like, it isn't Hamlet at all, really. Like, it has a completely different moral structure.
True.
So...
Okay, I get your point.
Fuck off. No, I'm joking. The Incredibles. These are all films that I thought were going to be in my top 10, really.
Mm-hmm.
The Incredibles, Mary and Max.
That was not in your top 10?
I kind of... Part of that is because I think it's in yours, so we'll talk about it anyway. But Toy Story 2... Not my top 10.
That's not my top 10 either.
Your Name, I thought was really fantastic. I'd seen it too recently to add it to my top 10, really. How to Train Your Dragon, we've talked about that already. Mm-hmm. The Lego Movie, I kind of saw that was in your top 10 again.
You kind of saw
I love it. I'll be honest, my number one spot is really the only fixed spot on this list. Like, I'm gonna on another day, these could all be.
I've seen what we have the same number one. And
really?
It's because I started to think about it and I was like, it's kind of perfect, isn't it?
Oh,
it is just kind of perfect.
Oh, someone else loves this film as much as I do.
It's just kind of like, yeah, we'll get into it, but it's just I agree. I totally
Shrek 2 is in my top 20.
Not mine, but yeah, go on.
Really like it. Coraline. I think Coraline is fantastic.
It is. I saw it when I was like, old enough to not be scared by kids' movies. Creeped the shit out of me.
I genuinely think you could do a kind of, again, sorry to mention him, but a Jordan Peterson kind of analysis. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and it might, because I've not thought about it enough, and I kind of watched it literally a few days ago. It could really creep up my list. Like, it could be at like number 4 or 5. I thought it was fantastic. Absolutely love Coraline.
Okay, is that yours?
So that's kind of my just things that didn't make my top 10, but I thought were fantastic.
Okay, for me, there's the Lego Batman movie. Really good deconstruction of Batman, and also the point when I've gotten really sick of Batman, and this movie was really good at just saying he's just a complete mopey prick and he needs to get friends. That's what I liked about it. Anomalisa is good. It's a really beautiful movie and it's just honest. Like, the sexy in that movie is just... I don't know,
I've got a story related to that, but it's on my list, so I'll get to that when I...
Sure, we'll get to it. We'll talk about it more, but it's so honest and so beautiful. I just thought it got a little bit too wanky to maybe put on my list.
See that.
Iron Giant.
Fantastic.
Brad Bird. He's got a really good eye for animation. Brad Bird.
And he really loves. I really love how he kind of.
He goes about the process of making his animated movies.
Yeah, there's that. That'll be interesting to talk to. Oh yeah, we both. Do you have The Incredibles in your top 10?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll leave it to that. But what I like with the Iron Giant, they're both kind of. He clearly has this really. Almost Del Toro loves like monsters. He clearly loves superheroes. Like, kind of the whole thing with being the superhero and kind of that deeper thing about what makes a hero. I really love that about his films. So
The Dark Knight Returns animated movie, which is the adaptation of the famous Batman comic. Really good adaptation. I think it also improves a lot on the comic. Because the comic has an ongoing narrative, but that doesn't entirely work in a movie or in like a special animated movie, and it's great. There's nothing entirely wrong with it. I think some of the things that it adapts is not. There's this weird 80s gang talk, which works in the 80s comic, because you get to figure out how the gang's saying it. But in the movies, like these guys like, like giant Mohicans and sunglasses, kind of like, we slice and dice, chicken legs, slice and dice. But really good.
Yeah.
Like a lot of animated movies, DC animated movies, have just been really cheap and sort of disposable, but this was actually pretty special.
Well, sorry, what you said about gangs kind of made me think about Akira a bit more. That was one of the things I loved about Akira, even though it's a small detail really, but I loved how the gang interacted.
Also like the individuality of each.
Yeah, like they don't have much time at all. Like some of them don't even speak, but there's something about them where they're distinguishable, and there's a clear kind of link between them, and it felt like gangs can be portrayed like, well, we're gonna get you up. And it's like, well, these were human. They felt really human. Sorry, I kind of.
It's just like every time I see a pill, I always think of Akira.
Yeah.
That's a cool jacket. I want that jacket.
Oh God, you'll be that person.
It is a cool jacket, alright?
It's like the people that wear like Sasuke Uchiha's fucking
I don't know what that
thing.
is.
It's Naruto.
That's all these fucking Chinese cartoons.
Yeah.
Tangled, I really like it. I understand that.
I don't get it.
I really like Tangled. I'm sorry.
Fair enough.
Just, I agree. The rest of the movie is not as good as the first 10 minutes.
Well, the first 10 minutes are masterful.
Masterful. But
Yeah.
having said that, I still do enjoy the amount.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Toy Story 2's on my list. Sinbad. I think that's an incredibly underrated movie.
Really?
Although
I've not seen it in ages.
I will admit, I'm very much a sucker for just adventure movies. That's just.
Yeah.
And it's the right blend of like comedy, really well done action, some of the 3D animation in it, because it's a 2D animated movie mostly. Some of the 3D animation doesn't quite blend well.
No.
But having said that, I think this movie should be up there for the portrayal of its villain, Eris, the goddess of chaos, and how she moves and how she's animated. It's phenomenal.
It looks brilliant.
Like, and how there's a part when she transforms into Sinbad, but they could have been very, very lazy and she could just clicks her fingers and turns into him. But what she does is she makes a dummy model and slides into him like a jacket, and it's just beautiful creativity. Next one, Treasure Planet. I fucking love Treasure Planet.
I remember liking it as a kid.
It's real good. It's like, yet again, that right blend of adventure and comedy, but the core relationship between him and Silver, really good. It's really gets you deep, gets you right here. Chicken Run, fucking great little Aardman movie.
Sorry,
Chicken Run's great.
I thought you were going to say Chicken Little then. I was like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's such an awful film.
Chickens go in and pies come out.
That is a fantastic film. Yeah.
El Dorado.
Not bad, actually.
Yeah, El Dorado, another really good DreamWorks movie before
DreamWorks.
we got to. And last one on my list is Paranorman, which is
I was going to mention that, yeah.
really good movie.
It's good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Great stop motion. And that's all my honorable mentions.
Yeah.
You start your number 10.
This is the one that no one. And I put it at 10 because of this, but I thought it, and also again, I saw it so recently that it kind of it's difficult to tell. But I loved it. Psychonautas Los Niños Olvidados, which is translated "Bird Boy: The Forgotten Children." Have you ever heard of that film?
I think it's my favourite movie. I'll look this up, Pam. What's it?
Really good piss.
Okay, go for a piss and I'll look this up.
Oh, really?
And I'll
You're just editing this out?
I'll edit this
okay.
out.
Oh, I was about to say, like, if I had to wait to do this top 10 without having piss. Jesus Christ.
And we're back, thanks to the power of editing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a nice
I looked
piss.
it up.
That was a long piss as well. Jesus, I was peeing for ages. Ooh-wee. Yeah, Bird Boy: The Forgotten Children. I thought it was absolutely incredible. I was blown away. It's a very short film. It's only now on 16 minutes, which one of my other films on here is very short as well.
One of mine's only
1 minute.
One of mine's only like an hour and 5 minutes.
I thought I hadn't put a film on my list that would have been like the worst thing ever. Jesus. Oh no. Basically, it's not really the synopsis on the
3 children decide to leave their homes looking for a better life.
Yeah, it's basically that. It's kind of bizarre.
The animation looks beautiful. I'll give you that.
It's lovely. It's so nice. It's so fluid and
it reminds me a bit of
jagged as well. Like, yeah, no, actually, it's funny. That was why I kind of gravitate towards it. Because oh, well, that animation style looks. Yeah, that was literally what I thought. It's kind of. It's largely just about dispossession and feeling dispossessed and kind of being part of a dispossessed class. So the main characters are these 3 children who find themselves isolated either by their family or by the people around them, or by their own mental health, and go, okay, we're going to leave, we're going to get a better life. We're going to get off this shitty island, because the island that they live on had an industrial accident, kind of, which caused loads of people to die, and which if you look at the animation style, you do not expect this film to be. It's one of the bleakest films I've ever seen. It's so depressing. Oh, and the voice acting is just incredible as well. And
is it dubbed or sub? Did you watch it?
Subbed.
Okay.
It was just wonderful, and this kind of, the island is full of kind of drug addicts, and one of the really interesting things it does is like the animation style around addiction. It's like the addiction is demons. They're like embodied things. Like there's this pig character who's a drug smuggler, and his mum is addicted to drugs, and it's kind of implied that it's what's keeping her alive, or it's kind of keeping her going, and he's giving her drugs, but the way the drugs are presented is this spider, is this huge spider that's like looming over the mother, and it's like, you know, come and give me my drugs, and the mum is in the bed like looking as if she's dead, and this kind of demon, and there's a point at which it's kind of implied that he either lets her die or he actually, you know, kills her, kind of puts her out of her misery. Is like this spider comes, like starts screaming at him and starts, you know, saying, oh, give me drugs, you piece of shit, give me drugs. And then he just like, it gets smaller and smaller, and he just, you know, swats it with a brush. And it's so beautifully animated. And Bird Boy is this kind of, I think it's kind of implied that he's like nature, like he's nature embodied, and the way this island, because it has a lot of themes and they kind of all interlink, but it's hard to talk with them about the film without feeling as if you're jumping around a lot. So one of the themes, as well as kind of being dispossessed, is about rubbish and production and overproducing stuff, and the problems of industrialisation. So one of the things happens is that inanimate objects are made human. Like they have personalities. They say stuff like a piggy bank. They find this piggy bank and it has a personality. And it's like, it's almost it's a really clever way of saying, like, okay, we're humans and we create these things. It's almost like gives us responsibility, because like we're creating these children almost, and you know the title's called The Forgotten Children. And it's almost there's a gang called The Forgotten Children within the film, but more broadly it's like the dispossessed are forgotten. Like there's a whole kind of class of rats who are just, you know, picking copper from the dump sites to sell to you know, like a kind of sleazy seller. And it's kind of it's so bleak, but it's so oddly enchanting almost, because like, you know, you have these inanimate objects that just start talking, start having personalities, and you know there's this well, you don't know, there's this clock who's like they treat it like a child almost, and it's like so bizarre, like it's so hard to describe it. And really there's a scene of kind of, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I feel as if the way I'm going to describe it, because I've thought about this, it won't give too much away.
Okay.
There's a scene, and it's just a small scene, you don't see much of these two characters, but it just typifies the feeling this film is, and it's depressing. These people are picking copper, and one of them has a son with him, and they're both picking copper, and these two characters have kind of been used as a narrative device. So the child will ask questions, be inquisitive, and the father will be like, you know, Bird Boy is this, whatever. The father gets into a scuffle with another father and child, and they start fighting, and it's like, okay, they're just getting into a scuffle, and then they start killing each other, and you're like, oh my god, what the fuck? And the kids then start fighting because they're watching their parents fight. They start fighting, and you're like, oh, that's, you know, a nice representation of what it's trying to represent. Like, you know, the passing on of the passing on of, you know, they're watching their parents do it, so it's what they do. One of the kids kills one of the other kids, like smacks him in the head, kills him, like just his like corpse, this character that we kind of got to know, and kind of we thought, like, oh, this kid's going to join up with the rest of the main cast. Like, no, he's dead on the floor. Kid that killed him, father, is killed by the other kid's father. So you kind of like, oh, that's so depressing. So this character whose son's just been murdered by this other kid just looks at this kid that's murdered his son, having killed this guy's dad, and this kid has this look of fear in his eyes, and this guy just dejectively picks up the copper that his kid was like collecting, walks off and almost like adopts this kid as his son just out of pure dejection, just like doesn't care anymore. It's like, okay, I've lost my own son, but you know, you're here. And like one of the ending scenes is these two characters that just killed basically each other's loved ones, just sitting in next to a fire together because they've lost so much in the world that they don't care anymore. It's like so depressing, but it was brilliant. It was
actually
genuinely.
I've added that to my list of things to watch.
It's really
sounds
good.
actually.
And it's only an hour and 15. It's not very long.
Yeah, so that sounds really unique. Actually,
it was really bizarre, but I loved it. What's your 10?
My number 10 is one that you have on your list because you told me to watch it, and I remember you even saying, "I don't think you'll like it though." I watched it. I did like it. I thought it was really good. Sita Sings the Blues.
Really? Oh yeah, that's my number 5.
I really enjoyed Sita Sings the Blues.
Yeah.
It's just like...
It's a masterpiece.
It's like I knew a bit about Ram and Sita because we learned like their story in school. But the way it was presented and the 3 different animation styles, even though one I thought was questionable at times.
Was that the one where they...
It's the singing one.
Yeah.
The one singing blues. I was like, it's a bit flash animation.
Yeah.
It's a bit...
Yeah, well, it is actually flash animation. Yeah.
Because it was a funded movie, like, through... Don't know how she did it, but...
I don't know.
What's the backstory?
I imagine she got private funding, but the interesting thing about Nina Pillay, who is the artist, and I like, if we ever had a guest on, like if we had a first guest, I know we'll never get to the point of ever having enough of an audience to get one. I would have Nina Pillay on as the first guest.
Did she because
she's fascinating?
Because Nina Pillay is also a character in this movie.
Yeah,
she plays
it's about her life
herself.
as well.
Yeah. So is she
about her divorce?
Did she convert to Hinduism after the divorce? Or
no.
The story she read after.
Jewish atheist. She just really connected with Ramayana and Sita. She really connected with Sita as a character because she was going through her own emotional turmoil, and it was very... Well, we should kind of describe the film.
Okay, so the movie it's basically a retelling of the Ram and Sita story, who are these two... In Hinduism, these are 2 figures, kind of like a Bible story. Yeah. Their version of a Bible story. And it's called Sita Sings the Blues because there are occasionally musical sequences where Sita will... Who's this... Because they only use one singer.
She's a really obscure singer from, like, blues singer. And I think the story behind that was that Nina kind of, while going through her kind of divorce with this person, read the Ramayana and listened to this music and connected with both of them. I'll look it up.
Is it Miss Simone?
No. Nina Simone's really famous. This person was completely, like, really obscure, and it was kind of...
I'll see if I can find it. You're kind of talking about...
She's a really interesting person, but for the film, it kind of... Yeah, there's this sequence where the Greek gods are kind of dryly telling the story, but what they're doing is kind of they're having a conversation with each other, kind of quite comedically, where they're talking about different interpretations. They're like, oh wait, did that happen? Oh no, in the way I was told it, this happened. It's quite funny, but it's kind of quite dryly they tell the story, and then these musical numbers are put in to kind of tell the story through these kind of contemporary, considering, you know, how the stories are, contemporary songs to tell the narrative of the story as these Indian gods are telling you, just like straight up telling you the story or their interpretations of it. And then there's a third aspect, which is just Nina's kind of divorce, like her relationship with this guy and divorce. And I think the reason it works so well is just that it really... And she did an interview with that I watched, and the interesting thing, it's interesting that she is an atheist, because it feels like she really appreciates mythic stories. And I'm not saying you have to not be an atheist to appreciate that, but she's doing another film, what's it called?
Let's have a look.
And I'm really hyped. It's going to come out in the next few months. Sadomasochism. Yeah, which is about the Bible stories, and she's released videos of that. Have you ever seen, she's released kind of parts of the film in isolation, because they're brilliant, and...
She's done a few of the movies since Shootings. This Land Is Mine.
No, they're part of sadomasochism.
Ah, okay.
She releases kind of just parts here and there, and the thing with Sita Sings the Blues is I just think it really cares about these stories, and you can really feel that, like, she was personally affected by them, and then personally affected by this music, and it's like it's weird. They shouldn't fit together because they're 3 completely separate things, but they do because there's, you know, the overarching thing is her. Like, she had these personal connections with these stories, with the music, with, you know, her own life experience, like, and it all pulled it together. And kind of, like, I'd say the kind of overarching theme is kind of the power of mythic stories. Is like, they affect us. There are these kind of transcendent stories that pull at our heartstrings, that kind of talk about the human existence as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, for me, why I love it, because it's really pulled those strings for me.
I think it's number 10 for me because I feel I think some of the singing sequences do drag a bit.
They're a bit
because they do use the entire song.
They use the entire song.
And the animation for the singing bits, I don't love all the time. Sometimes it's used to comedic effect quite well. But the time it's not that visually stimulating for me to enjoy the sequence enough.
And the thing with their next film, it looks a lot more polished in that regard. I'm really excited for a new film, Masochism.
Because I think the best bit is the bit when the gods are explaining. They're back and forth.
They're so funny.
Yeah,
they're really good. Like,
well, I think it's this. No, you idiot. It's definitely this happened. It was like, because they went to Lanka. You mean Sri Lanka? It was called Lanka at the time.
Yeah. It's so perfectly kind of set against, like, these kind of other moody bits. You know, the songs are quite dreary, and then, you know, the part about her divorce is quite, you know, sad, but not too sad. Like, it's not presented in a kind of really too dour way, but those comedic moments really work. And I'm so excited for Sadomasochism. But the interesting thing about her, and the reason one of the other reasons I put this on my list and kind of put her up, is I really respect her as an artist, and I'm not in the kind of bullshit like, oh, I respect her message. No, she is part of this thing called something copyright.
IMDb, please tell me something.
No, it won't be. Question copyright. She's completely anti-copyright. She's like a fanatic about copyright. This film is free to watch
on YouTube.
You can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it anywhere. She does not care if you pirate her video, put it on your YouTube channel. We could host it on our channel for all she wants. She is fundamentally like, she thinks anything that copies is not bad. One of the things with Sadomasochism, which is quite interesting, is that, you know, she's releasing that for free. She's just releasing it. The only reason she hasn't released it already, because the film is made, is because certain film festivals won't host films that have already been released on the internet. So the only reason she hasn't released it already is because of that. And she's really interesting. Like, she just hates the idea that she thinks she literally has like a saying like copyright is like brain cancer. She's a really interesting person, as well as being a like creating a really great film. And she made this film alone. Like, she
made it alone?
Yeah, she animated it. Okay. She wrote it. Literally, I think. Did she have any creative control? I'm almost certain she made it alone, and same with Sadomasochism as well.
Cast and crew.
No, there are voice acts and things, but as far as making,
she like on most of the things versus like a producer. It's only one person.
Yeah, it's her.
So she's just
Nina basically did it all herself.
Yeah, that's
it's a fantastic achievement, because, you know, making your own film.
What's more, it's a free movie on YouTube. I guess I think you know, if you're not into the first, once you see, you know, a segment from each one and you're not into it, I get it. That's fine. It's free. And so it's not long either.
But support her, because she's great. Yeah, she's a really interesting person as well.
You don't like it, just leave it running in the background.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't even necessarily get money from, because she doesn't like.
Doesn't have them.
Yeah, she doesn't advertise it, and, you know, she just releases it for free, effectively.
No. And Annette Hanshaw is the singer. He sings the blue. Annette Hanshaw is the blue singer.
I can vaguely remember seeing an interview where she said that person was quite obscure, and she literally found it in like a grandma's basement and listened to it. I think, but yeah, it's kind of just a story about like the transcendent power of art. Like, you know, she was going through a really rough time in her life, and she listened to this music, and she read this story that really connected with and really helped her through it, and it's fantastic. She kind of found her power. And there's that one scene which is just incredibly animated, with the song bit.
Which one?
With the dancing bit, with all the kind of it's quite choppy.
The beginning scene.
No, it's like midway through where.
Oh no! Yeah.
There's a really fantastic scene halfway through that's just incredible. It's one of my favourite scenes in any animated film. Maybe any film. I just think it's so. It's not really a scene because nothing goes on. It's almost like a music video, but it's so powerful emotionally.
I thought it went on for a bit too long. But anyway.
Really, I love that. I love that whole sequence.
Number 9.
Grave of the Fireflies.
Haven't seen it.
Jesus Christ, that film's
I've
depressing.
seen no Studio Ghibli movies.
It's truly one of the most depressing films ever. On the back of Bird Boy: The Forgotten Children, which was depressing but nowhere near as depressing as Grave of the Fireflies. Grave of the Fireflies is basically a film about two kids dying. It's more just it's about Japan, the fire bombings of Japan, like in the war. I think it didn't really touch on Hiroshima too much because it was about this kind of. It was isolated in this area where they're being firebombed, so it wasn't really about Hiroshima. Damn depressing. The film starts with the two main characters dying. It's literally how the film starts. The first scene is a kid who's got no food and he's literally dying, and then someone going up and going, "Oh, he's dead." Like, you kind of know what kind of film, but I kind of think you can make really dreary film. But I think the reason I think this film's so good, rather than just being dreary and sad, is that it kind of really captures the light in childhood, the kind of that magic, that feeling, that hope almost. And it really is I would say the overarching message of the film is that, and this ties into the title, Grave of the Fireflies, is that like nothing beautiful can flourish in war. Effectively, I think that's really the message, is that, you know, these two kids who are quite innocent, they're not completely innocent, but they have these kind of, you know, they're right, you love them, and by the end of the film you love these kids, you really feel for them as people, not just these are kids where sad things are happening to them. They're fantastic characters, but you know, you kind of there's this feeling of pure impending doom. It's just like they're not going to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the mum, like, you know, gets firebombed, dies like in front of the kid. You know,
it's so blasé about
it's
this.
so horrible. It's horrid. It's just really horrible. But you kind of somehow, like, a lot of films like that, they can just be so dreary that it's like, misery why would porn. I watch it? Yeah, misery porn. But this isn't. It kind of does really take its time to show this kind of innocence of youth and this kind of beauty in it, the kind of love between these siblings, these emotions, and that makes the kick at the end, and at the start when they die, even worse, because ultimately you love these characters and you love the characters, and that's the thing. It's not sad things happening to people. You know, you can watch any sad video on YouTube where you don't know the people, but it makes you feel sad because you can empathise with the general situation. But these characters are so good and so interesting. Like, one of the things that I would say the film grapples with is like growing up, but you know, they die, so they don't grow up, but you know, it's like the look you gave me then was like, but kind of knowing when to be independent. Like, this kid effectively goes, like, the aunts, they live with their aunt for a bit after the mother dies, and the aunt's a bit of a bitch to them, so they leave. But it's like, well, that's the worst thing you could do, because then they die. If they hadn't have left her, it's clear that the older male character, I've forgotten his name, Sato or something. Sato? Something like that, yeah. He is trying to grapple with this idea of he wants to make it alone, he wants to look after his sister, he doesn't want to feel like he's doing nothing. But ultimately that ends up with them dying, and you could always think, oh, well, fucking idiot kid, but you completely empathise. Well, no, but some people could think that, but you completely empathise with it. It's like, you can empathise with that feeling that he wants to get away from that, and he wants to look after his sister alone, away from this horrible aunt, and it's so tragic. It is unbelievably tragic, and it's a fantastic anti-war film.
Is it Miyazaki directed it?
No, it's not Miyazaki. I can't remember who exactly directed it. I feel bad. It's oh god, it escaped me.
Okay.
Look up quickly.
Ah!
No, don't bother. No.
Okay.
It's a fantastic film, and it is, one of the highest rated animated films for a reason. It is truly brilliant.
Well, I think my number 9 is probably the complete opposite of what you just mentioned. Mine's a movie we actually watched when we were doing our French GCSE, because they were like, oh, you can learn French from this, which is surprising because no one actually fucking speaks in this movie. But it's a French animated movie called The Triplets of Belleville. And how to really begin to describe this movie? It's about a young boy and his grandma who live together. And the movie starts off with how they're trying to get him a hobby. And it's like, she buys her piano, he does a few keys, he's like, no, fuck this. She buys him a dog, he's like, oh, fucking dog, I want something. And
he likes the dog.
He likes the dog, but it's not his passion.
No.
Until she finds like a box of just cycling magazines and pictures and everything. And the movie is just them. Grandma raises him to be in the Tour de France. But it turns out the mafia, the French mafia, is kidnapping Tour de France cyclists to then race in their like... How do you describe what they're racing in? It's like...
I don't know, it's like... I can't even remember.
It's like imagine they're all on like...
They're on like treadmills, not treadmills,
like
bike machines.
Bike machines, which are moving little bike men across a board. And all these mafia bosses are just betting on all these bikers to try and get their little bike person from one end of the board to the other in the fastest time. And if one of them passes out due to exhaustion, they just shoot them in the head.
Oh god, this film is a trip.
It's trippy. It has this really bizarre animation style, especially in terms of like when things are big. Like the ladies who are fat are just outrageously fat. And
there's a weird scene at the start where this huge woman just comes onto the screen and she's literally like the size of the stage.
Yeah, and like her husband or whatever is just like attached to a giant butt. It's called the Triplets of Belleville because there's these famous old singers from the 20s who are the triplets, and they help the grandma rescue her son from the French mafia who are kidnapping Tour de France members.
Yeah,
it's really good. And
it's a good film.
The music is beautiful. Not beautiful, it's great. The whole kind of rendezvous. That was in my head for a long time after watching it.
Yeah.
It's just unique. It's only like an hour long, and it's just so bizarre and weirdly comedic but dark. It's this kind weird of this mix and blend.
Like the whole art style is horrible, but it works.
It's really ugly. Like the main character's nose is longer than he is.
Yeah, and he's got this fucking horrible calf.
His calves look like arses just like glued on, but it's just so charming and likable. And I don't know. I think I obviously have a thing for French animation. I've got like a few French animated movies on my list, and it's just, if you order subtitles, no one really speaks. It has a really good sense of visual storytelling.
Yeah, there's almost no speech at all.
Yeah, I think there's one exposition bit on a TV, and that's it. The rest is you can totally get through music and interactions and the animation, and it's just really good. And I watched it again since watching it in class, and I know, it's just so charming. Sort of gut punch of charm.
Yeah, so this is a really nice film. I'm surprised. I completely forgot about the film actually. I'm kind of surprised it's not on my recommended kind of top 20. It's a really good film. I enjoyed it as well.
Okay. Number 8.
Well, we've kind of talked about this. You recommended it, Anomalisa.
I mentioned it. Yeah.
Love it's the one thing I'll mention that kind of you maybe didn't is that the producer. The co-director of this film, because Charlie Kaufman and
Duke Johnson
direct this film. He was, I think he was a producer on Moral Laurel. He might have been one of the more creative roles as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Moral Laurel is also, we've already talked about it. I love that. So, Anomalisa, I'm a huge fan of Charlie Kaufman. His writing, anything he's written, and what he's directed. I think he's a brilliant creator. He's really good at just capturing a particular kind of melancholy of it's kind of not even melancholy, it's too like pure depression, like in a way narcissistic depression I'd call it. This kind of self-indulgent yet really empathizable form of depression like this. And not, it's about this guy who, the kind of conceit of the film is that this guy can't hear more than one voice and see more than one face. Everyone that he sees, everyone he listens to has the same voice and the same face.
Until he meets
Lisa, who is an anomaly. Anomalisa!
It's Japanese for princess.
Goddess of Heaven.
Yeah.
I think. So he meets this woman who, in all real sense, is just an ordinary, almost under average, not under average,
just kind of
lower than
average
average,
lady
kind of
who's insecure about
bit
herself. And
stupid, has a scar on her face, is a bit
Dark
dim but
hair,
lovely, and they really picked, what's her name?
Jennifer
Jason Leigh has such an amazing voice for this. She just has such a soft quality to it. And, you know, it's just him and her voice in the film, and Tom Newman, who should have won.
Is he the guy who does
something.
all the other voices?
He's all the other voices.
He's so good.
He's
as all
so
the other
brilliant in
voices.
this film, because there's so many varied things.
He plays the child. He's like,
Yeah,
Daddy,
Daddy, what's this stuff coming out of the... But
God, nothing.
he skirts the line, because, you know, it could be completely, like, monotonous and like, oh my God, like it could really have been terrible if they got the wrong voice actor, but he managed to be monotonous, but while still giving enough emotion for you to kind of look at other characters, and yeah, they've got the same voice, but they are different characters. It really worked. It was so nice.
And the main the main voice actor who plays
yeah, what's his name again?
okay, he's
The guy that plays
Professor Lupin in Harry
Professor Lupin
Potter.
in Harry Potter.
Really good.
Really brilliant.
The speech he gives when drunk is
Really-
just so powerful.
Yeah, brilliant performances throughout, and she's really depressing. So he
So
finds
depressing.
this woman
Just
and kind of like falls in love with her, but at the same time,
is she that special?
no, she's not. And it's very much, you know, he's a depressed guy. He's very depressed. Everyone has just become the same to him. He kind of
Doesn't care about
wanna-
his children anymore.
Yeah, doesn't care
his
about
wife.
anyone. Kind of pure feelings of just nothingness towards other people.
Mhm.
He's kind of that low, and then he finds this woman, and he kind of their relationship, and it's really their relationship.
It's
in
it's
a-
one day. It's
yeah,
one night,
but-
sort of.
But in a hotel room.
In a hotel
They're
room.
just sat in a hotel room, and it's so
It's just honest.
genuine.
It's so
Yeah.
honest.
And it's probably because this was a audio play before it was a film, and I imagine, like, you know, if most people make a film, they practice the lines and practice the emotions, and then they film it, and then that's done. But because they had to act this out for a number of nights, I imagine Jennifer, Jason Leigh, and what's his name? Is it like Ned something or
Oh, look.
Ted?
Like
Whatever, it doesn't matter. But
I think it's
the other guy, they
David
really
Thewlis.
connect. There's this genuine connection, and it is just lovely. And I've got a story about this, right?
Also,
I went to
I
see
should
this
say
film.
that it's stop motion,
Yes, the
and not
animation,
like you could fucking tell.
it's gorgeous.
It's one of the most beautiful movies I've ever
It's
seen.
so brilliantly done.
And like, you know, like especially I mentioned the sex scene earlier. It's like if you've ever been in an intimate situation with anyone, it's like the awkwardness you feel.
It's so awkward, and I was in a cinema, an empty cinema, with my
your
mum. Yeah, it was kind of a weird moment because I basically what happened was I was like, Mum, I really want to see this film, and it got a very limited release in the UK. It got like a few cinemas, and it happened one of them was in a city relatively close to us, but not so close as to just go to see the film. So I was like, oh, I really want to see this film. And Mum was like, oh yeah, why don't we go? And I was like, okay.
That's
Whatever.
That's an amazing impression of your mum.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah. She was kind of like, okay, let's go, and make a day of it. I was like, oh, okay. And I can't imagine what she must have thought when she took her son to watch a film where two puppets like have a 3-minute long sex scene, which is unbelievably awkward in an empty cinema.
And realistic.
And
completely
yeah,
realistic.
like, you know, you see the dick, you see, like, you kind of see everything. He starts licking her out. It's like, oh my God. And I was just sat next to my mum like, oh Jesus, like, what do I say after this?
Did you remember to go, whoo?
Well, no, mum was just a fucking weirdo. She didn't even think that was weird, but I was sat there like, oh.
But I don't think
this
it's
is
weird because
awkward.
it works with the movie. You
Yeah, no, yeah,
right?
yeah, like, but you know, it's like no one likes watching a sex scene with their parents, but that's a particularly bad one because it's so drawn out and so awkward, and it's meant to be. Yeah, fantastic film.
Mm-hmm. Like, my number 8?
Pun?
Should I go to my number 8? Oh, do you want
Yeah.
to say?
No.
My number 8 is, I watched it recently, it's another French movie. It's called My Life as a Courgette, or something as My Life
That
as...
was a zucchini, wasn't it?
Well, in England it's called My Life as a Courgette, because we don't have zucchinis in England.
Oh.
We banned them a long time ago. So, this movie is also stop motion, but it's quite childish stop motion, but that also goes with the themes of the movie, because it's about a boy who calls himself Courgette, who goes to an orphanage because he accidentally kills his mum, who was like...
Jesus Christ.
Who was like... She was like a drunk, and like it's a lot of visual storytelling, but it's quite clear that her husband left her, and so she now resents the TV, and there's just beer cans everywhere, and so she's like, fucking lies, she throws a beer can, and he just he makes castles and stuff out of it, and, you know, the start of the movie, he drops something, and she's like, I'm gonna fucking get you, you're gonna get a beating of your life you've never seen, and like, he runs up like the loft to his room, and closes the door as she's like, her head peeks out, and the door falls on her head and she falls down the stairs and dies.
Ah, Jesus.
That's the opening scene. And so he goes to an orphanage. What to say about this movie? It's not depressing because it's seen through the eyes of a child and the children around him, and that complements the animation style. But it's just so charming. It's one of the most charming movies I've ever seen in my life. From the voice acting, which is just superb. It's done by actual children, but you feel so much empathy in their voices, and they're so sympathetic. And I guess deep down it's a love story between him and he meets another girl at the orphanage. And it's really funny, but also it's all the other children in the orphanage, they've had like hard lives as well, and they touch on them, but you can infer a lot through just looking at the character designs. Like, you see a few, they've got like scars on their head and stuff like that. And one girl it's implied that her dad sexually abused her, and she hides, and you know, she's got, it's most of the might not sound so, but the way it's done, she's got like one sort of giant hair strand over her eye as she tries to hide. She's got like, she has shakes, and she's eating dinner with the rest of the child, and all he hears is like tapping of a fork on a plate really rapidly, because she's always just scared all the time and on edge. But at the same time, it's just really, really funny. Like, there's a cop who takes Cosette into the orphanage, and thing is, one of the children's dads went to prison for stealing, and so every time he comes around to see Cosette, like a water balloon just drops in his face. He's like, ah! And he goes, why did that happen? And he's like, because he thinks you're the cop who took his dad to jail. And it's just endlessly charming and endlessly beautiful. I think one only sort of gripe with it is that because it is so from the view of a child, that sometimes when children speak, sometimes they'll try to be funny and just say jokes on the mind, and it's irritating. Yeah. And even though it's honest in the sense that children can be really goddamn irritating sometimes.
Well, so you want to beat them.
True, but at the same time, it's kind of irritating to watch. It doesn't happen a lot, but at times I was like, okay, shut the fuck up now, please.
Like Gary from Final Space.
Nothing is annoying as Gary from Final Space.
I need to watch this one. I've not seen it.
Yeah, it's only like an hour and 5 minutes.
Really?
It's so great. I watched the dubbed version. English voice actors are great. It might sound better in French, I don't know, but it's just...
Well, it kind of depends on the film.
Beautiful.
I've just found with... there's an element of there is just a stereotype with kind of anime watchers that it's like, oh, you can't watch the dubs. But I don't know, there is an element of dubbing can be badly done, and it can be done cheaply, where they just get shitty voice actors that aren't actually that good. In recent years, it's gotten better because you know, animated films from over there have gotten more popular. But there are like the Akira dub was particularly flat, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, just flat.
I feel as if I really wanted to watch the sub.
Let's check it out. It has a really unique
it sounds really good.
Style as well. So
yeah, I so that got nominated for best animated film when whatever year it was released. And I don't know, just looking at the style, it put me off. But actually,
I thought like because based on the animation style, I thought each kid would be a vegetable.
Yeah,
and so, but no, it's not like that. It's just this one kid's called Courgette.
Yeah, that was kind of why I didn't. Because I was like, it sounded like a really baby thing. But then the second you said, "Oh, well, his mum died," I was like, "Oh, well, it can't really be."
It's Oscar nominated for best animated feature in 2017.
Yeah, and what won?
Coco. Side Out. Coco won.
Well, 2017.
Let me check.
It was last year.
Let me check. You say you want to.
My 7 is Spirited Away, and I don't really think there's much to say other that it hasn't been said. It's an absolutely beautiful movie. It's astounding. It's not particularly narratively heavy, but it is just beautiful. It is the animation is wonderful. The character design, the characters all look incredible. I really think and the music. That's the thing that the music is just incredible. All of Hayao Miyazaki's films have this incredible score of just so, I don't know, it's beautiful is like the only word for it. And I don't want to say much about it because it's so, just watch it, and if you haven't, where have you been? Well, you
haven't seen it.
But it's kind of what everyone says, oh, that's one of the best animated films ever made. And it is, yeah, it is. And it's kind of a simple story. This girl goes to, is moving. It's a good version of Inside Out because the girl's moving away from her home. I'm joking. No, this girl's moving away from her home. What are you looking for?
Zootopia 1.
Did it?
Oh, fucking hell.
Well,
sorry.
I like Zootopia.
I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, I liked it, but I can imagine that sounds far more interesting. And I imagine once I've watched that, because, you know, if it's on your list, I imagine it's pretty good. So I imagine I'll be as annoyed as you are. Spirited Away, yeah, it's fantastic. A lot of it's visual of why it's so incredible, because the story's so simple. It's like this girl gets kind of taken to the spirit world and has to work effectively to be able to get back with her parents, and it's kind of, that's the story. There's loads of scenarios and characters that go around that, other than kind of just telling you everything that happens in the film. It's hard to say why it's so fantastic, but it is. It's gorgeous. The characters, you kind of fall in love with them. They all feel so genuine. Again, this is a good example where the dub is actually alright. Because
not a lot of speaking?
No, there's a lot of speaking. It's just because Disney did put quite a lot of effort into its dubs for these films because they were so successful. Really, the scene that I'm just thinking of it's quite a famous scene, but when it's just this completely quiet scene where she's on the train, and it's just beautiful. It's kind of that's the film. The film is just these beautiful visuals, these beautiful feelings, and just sensations, and it's simple but deeply effective. And yeah, it's just a wonderful experience.
My number 7 is just okay. To be honest, not a lot of depth to this one, not a lot of like deep themes. It's mainly because I laugh so hard watching it, and it's just so creative and just oozing with charm. It's the Lego Movie.
Great movie.
I fucking love the Lego Movie.
It's fantastic.
The way it uses different characters in different universes is just ingenious. The way it rips apart Batman. I love Will Arnett as Batman. That's the reason I love the Lego Batman movie, and how it has these grand, epic sort of action scenes you'd see in like a Michael Bay movie, but miniaturized into Lego. It's just so fun, and the jokes are so fast. Like, if you need to rewatch it multiple times to get everything in it. So if you laugh once, you've missed 3 jokes.
I've watched it a few times. It is so funny. Yeah, it is a brilliant film.
It's so good. And like it's done by the people who didn't make the Han Solo movie. Bloody Miller and something. Phil
I know
Lord,
you mean.
Chris Miller and Phil Lord.
Yeah.
The Jump Street movies as well. It's a shame they didn't make the Han Solo movie, because it was just so generic. But
they probably had too much creativity.
They probably did have too much creativity.
The Lego Movie is a fantastic film. I would kind of disagree with depth. It kind of has a nice depth to it. It kind of has that whole thing going for it where
okay, maybe not as much depth as every other movie I have on this list.
Yeah, maybe, but yes, it's a great film.
Yeah. I'm not entirely with the ending. I get the ending it's all just in the kid's imagination, because the Lego piece does move outside of that. But I did feel maybe just a bit cheap at the beginning, but I'm okay with it.
I remember I hated it as a kid. Not as a kid, like when I first watched it, I was 16 when it came out. But when I watched it recently, I really liked the ending. I completely changed my view on it. I think it's because I was such an annoying piece of shit as a kid. I was like, oh, stupid, it wasn't real, it doesn't matter. It's like, well, actually, a lot of the things that aren't real do matter a lot to people. So it almost doesn't matter, it's not real, it's in their head, because stories are actually quite important to people. I did the opposite thing, where I watched it the first time, hated the ending, and then loved the ending the second time.
Yeah, but that's all we'd say about it. It's just real good time. Number 6. My
number 6 is Persepolis, and I absolutely adore this film. I think it's unbelievably charming, beautiful. The story is basically about this girl living through the Iranian Revolution, and I'd say really it's about her coming to terms with her identity, and there's a point where she moves to the West. She kind of butts heads with certain things that are happening there. It's funny because she goes through genuine oppression. Her uncle dies at one point. She loves her uncle. I think her uncle gets killed by whatever regime, gets put in prison. And she gets annoyed by the Western people saying, "Oh, you know, everything's meaningless. Oh, the world's so stupid," because you know she's seen so much agony in her life that. So it's all about her trying to find a way of fitting in and coming to terms with her identity. Because the Iranian revolution, was that what I said?
You said that to begin with, yeah.
Yeah, was kind of, you know, as a woman, would have been a very hard time to live. She was a very rambunctious child, and she's basically being told you have to wear a hijab, you've got to conform to this culture, and it's kind of very hard for her to accept her identity, really. And I think, not to get too personal, but I think it's a certain thing I really appreciate about this film. The ending, it's not really a spoiler. The final line of the film is her getting into a taxi and her taxi driver just going, "Oh, where are you from?" Like, "Oh, well, that's because she's speaking French to this taxi driver." She goes, "Oh," he goes, "Oh, you're speaking French. You've got a bit of an accent. Where are you from?" And she just says, "I'm from Iran." But it's so beautiful because, you know, she's really been conflicted about her identity, and she kind of, the scene is just about her owning her identity. And I think I love this film so much, and it's a well-loved film, so it's not like it's.
Have you read the graphic novel?
No, I haven't.
Do you think you will, or do you just keep?
I don't know. Like, yeah, maybe I will.
Does the graphic novel have more? Do you know?
It's got more depth, but I've heard from people that really like the graphic novel, but that the film is it kind of just captures the spirit without having all the detail, but it really does a good job.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I kind of personally kind of really associate with, you know, she's, you know, I have family that are Moroccan, I'm mixed race, and I've never really felt that connection, partly because, you know, I'm gay and it's illegal to be gay in Morocco. My dad doesn't accept that, and I kind of really personally felt in touch with what she was feeling, these kind of disparate feelings of like, well, actually that's part of your identity, but at the same time you don't feel accepted. You know, she's a woman that's being oppressed effectively by a repressive regime. She kind of runs to the west, but then at the same time she doesn't really find herself. So I really appreciate those themes. I thought it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
my list.
As well. No,
my list to watch.
Oh, list to watch. I was about to say, I thought you hadn't watched it.
No, I don't want to watch it. Number 6 for me is another French animated movie. Obviously, it's animated.
Persepolis is French, by the way. Just point that out.
Ooh la la. It's called April and the Extraordinary World. And now, you don't always talk about when something should be animated.
Yeah.
You know, when it should be used. I think this movie is sort of a perfect example of why animation is useful. Because this movie sort of takes place in an alternative future where Napoleon never conquered there's never a Prussian war, Napoleon never conquered the entirety of France and spread his empire around. And because of this, also in this world, loads of famous scientists like Albert Einstein have been kidnapped by an unknown person, we don't know who. So because of the technological developments that would have occurred through basic war and these scientists progressing didn't occur, and so the world is now dependent on coal, but then the coal starts running out.
Oh no!
And so then they convert to chopping down trees and using charcoal, but then the charcoal starts to run out, and so to carry on the French Empire, the French go to war with America for control over the Canadian forests. That's like the world this is set in. And so because of this, it leads to lots of really incredible designs in this movie, in terms of like, in Paris, instead of having one Eiffel Tower, there are two, and that is, well, it's not a train station to say, but it's like, imagine a tram, but powered by steam, and there's tram lines going from there to Berlin, and the tram is this huge, giant iron and metal and bolts and steam everywhere, with blimp balloons attached to it, that goes from Paris to Berlin. The amount of creativity in this movie is unbelievable. And there's like little details such as, do you know how the Eiffel Tower was a gift from France to America? Well, obviously in this world, this would never have happened. And so
not the Eiffel Tower, the
Statue of Liberty,
Statue of Liberty.
So instead of the Statue of Liberty of being a woman holding a thing, It's just a cowboy. It's just a giant cowboy, like doing the yeehaw gun shooting up pose. But I should probably talk about the movie. The movie is about a girl called April, whose mother and dad were scientists who tried to. Their like great granddad was asked by the French government to perfect this serum, the super soldier serum, so we can fight the Prussians. But one thing led to another, and the scientist ends up killing the Emperor and Napoleon. And so their family sort of goes into hiding. And so the French government is also after scientists to make the super soldier serum, and they go after April's family. And the whole movie is about the government trying to get the serum back, April trying to escape and find her family again, because her family disappears at the start, and trying to solve the mystery of where all these unknown these scientists are going to, because the government isn't kidnapping them. There's an unknown third party.
Oh, okay.
And when you find out, it's kind of like you do this sort of what the fuck, like I'm like, who fucking wrote this? But not in a way of kind of like this is stupid. It is kind of stupid, but it doesn't ruin the movie.
No.
But I think for the creativity, the beautiful animation, the great voice acting and music, it makes up for the two gripes I sort of have with it, which is there's a romance plot which doesn't really work, but the movie isn't dependent on the romance plot. It's just sort of an extra which doesn't really work. And the villain, towards the end, like they had like a plan which was fairly generic, but it was also understandable. So you kind of go, yeah, that's not a bad idea really. But then it does like a 180 where it's like, it just comes generic. Yeah, it even just like he goes, aha, no, this is my plan all along, ha ha ha. And I was like, oh really?
I hate that.
That's it.
Annoying.
That's what really sort of, why it wouldn't be higher. I think if they did the original plan and made it give a bit more depth, it would have been better. But yet again, this movie is also really funny. It's not outright.
Sorry, what was it called?
April and the Extraordinary World.
Wow.
It's not like.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, okay, I saw like a trailer on IMDb like a few years ago. I was like, I had that. I'll watch that one day.
Well,
it's not. Yeah, it's not outright like made as a comedy, but it's quite dry, and the characters are all quite witty, and also has a really good use of slapstick. It's not slapstick in a lazy way, but that's also added because the animation is so fluid and beautiful that slapstick can work so well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, if you're into sort of unique worlds, or if you like Doctor Who, and there's like it's like doing a Doctor episode where they go to like a world where some dumb thing happened, but also changes the entirety of.
Yeah.
Kind of like one time when England's on a giant turtle, that one episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
It's
like more like a manatee.
You know what I mean? That that kind of thing, you'll get a kick out.
Or like the Age of Steel one where they go to the Cyberman universe.
Yeah, or something like that. You'd get a kick out of this movie because it's just so bizarre and unique, and just I've said this lots of times. It's just so charming. It's so damn charming. It's fucking French guys. They know what they're doing. Tell you that. Watch it. It's really good.
Yeah. Sounds good. I'm gonna watch that one because I've never heard of it. Wow. What are we on?
Number 6. What was your number 6?
Oh no, my 6 was Persepolis.
Okay,
so 5. The thing is, my 5 is City Sings the Blues, which we've already talked about. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I'd want to say about it? No, I just love that film. I think it's a fantastic film. We've talked about it a minute ago. I'd maybe talk about Nina Playing a bit more. Just, she really has. It's really interesting. She was talking to someone. Again, to mention him for the 5th time. She did an interview with John Peterson, and one of the things she kind of said, which really surprised me, was that she really didn't kind of respect the stories in the Bible, like the Exodus. She was very kind of atheistic about it and was like, oh, they're a bit stupid, they're very patriarchal. She didn't really like them. But the funny thing is, her art kind of says a different thing. Like, if you watch, like, Death of the Firstborn Egyptian, you don't feel as if it's really mocking the religion. And it's really interesting, because, like, it feels like she simultaneously kind of holds it to this reverence, but at the same time is this kind of quite atheistic person. And I'm really, the only reason I'm really bringing this up is because we've already kind of said what we actually want to say about City Sings the Blues. It's kind of interesting. It's just like what do you think the artist really knows what they're doing when they're making something? Because there's this narrative.
No, I think there's a lot of improvisation, how you feel at the time when.
Go on, sorry.
I think art is never consistent. Like, you might not get a consistently like tonal movie or consistently artistically similar movie.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, throughout the movie, because art is influenced by your mood and how each day comes, and so I think there's a lot of improvisation when it comes to one single vision as well.
Yeah. I'd maybe kind of disagree, because mood makes it kind of sound a bit more like, oh, I was feeling a bit sad that day. I kind of think art is kind of an articulation of things that you not really articulate. Like, yeah, there's like levels of articulation. So there's one level where you're like talking quite logically about things, and then there's a level where you're kind of acting things out emotionally. And I would say art's like that. So you could be saying one thing about something, actually it comes across another way. And like, I remember, like, because I kind of dabbled around with writing and stuff, and I wrote something, and I'm shit, I'm not like putting myself up there with actual artists. I'm just like using this as an example. Is I wrote something, and I was talking to someone about a relationship I'd had with someone, and I was talking to them, and I was like, I just had a kind of clicking moment where I was like, oh my god, that thing that I wrote was about this. And it's like, it's so clear that it was, but it wasn't like cognitive, it wasn't like logically there yet. And it's interesting how she seems to have a particular view of herself and her art as being kind of like disliking these stories, while at the same time when you actually watch her art, I think a lot of people don't feel like they feel there is this reverence. She clearly has reverence for the Ramayana. That's kind of slightly a different thing, but with these biblical stuff that she's doing, she kind of said, oh, she didn't like these stories. She actually found that she much preferred the religion that kind of supplanted in Exodus, Judaism kind of supplanted the people that lived on the land previously. She found herself really, I think it's ascetic. She found herself really appreciating that. But it's quite interesting. I just think, like, does the artist really know what they're doing, and where are they coming from when you create something like really good and really great? So yeah, rather than talking about City Sings the Blues again, I thought I'd interject that just as a point.
Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. My number 5
You need to stop thanking me for speaking on this podcast.
No, because I feel like you always say you're very intellectual and you've got quite a good insight.
Yeah, I just talk bullshit.
Maybe, but I feel like you sound smarter than me, because I'm just like, I like movies.
No, you're much like, I don't really. I'm so shit at the technical side. Like, if you'd got into a technical conversation about animation, as someone that supposedly loves it as a medium, I would literally be like talking like a moron, because I just have no interest and no idea about the more technical sides of film, whereas you are clearly more interested and far more intelligent than me on that kind of stuff. Like, I just don't know any of it, like, at all.
But speaking of, I like movies. Number 5 is The Incredibles.
Oh, fantastic! To be honest, the only reason that isn't in my top 10 is because I wanted to make space for more interesting films, and I knew it would be on yours. Like, I think it's incredible.
It's incredible.
It's an incredible film.
Oh, baby! I think I have a real affinity for superheroes in general. It's kind of like my first introduction to sort of fiction was probably through Spider-Man, to be quite honest with you. And the way it's sort of similar to sort of, it's a very Watchmen vibe, Incredibles does. But superheroes going into hiding and everything. It takes the sort of basic it does an amazing deconstruction of superheroes. Generally, like the whole thing about capes is really funny, and monologuing, bad guy monologuing. The whole thing with Syndrome when he finally reintroduces himself to Mr. Incredible, and he's doing the whole kind of throwing a bat with his laser and like, no, I am the greatest villain you've ever faced, and I will show you, and throws him away. And kind of when he finishes monologuing and then does the breaking, he's like, oh, for fuck's sake. It shows the theatrics of a villain. And it's also a very sympathetic villain.
To an extent. But they kind of... There's a point at which... Like, Naruto, I used to watch it as a kid. It's terrible, don't it?
As a kid.
It goes too far in, like, really trying to get you to sympathise with the bad guys. Like, Jesus Christ. With this, it was like... There's a sympathetic element, but he's a complete arsehole who does awful things. So it's like, you're not there like, oh, well, he could have been a good guy. Like, okay, he's a bad guy, but he has something yeah, like I can see what you mean.
Yeah, and just the dynamics between all the characters in general. Like, him and Mrs. Incredible, him going through a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
There's lots of really good and interesting conflicts in this entire movie. And the way it's directed and the whole style, the sort of 50s deco style, you've seen The Incredibles, everyone's seen The Incredibles.
Yeah.
The score is amazing.
Fantastic,
It's
yeah.
sort of, I love it so much, and just amazing voice work. I'm struggling with things because it's just obvious.
One of the things I'd say is that I don't think a lot of 3D films hold up.
There are some bits
time.
in it where it's a little sketchy.
But I would actually say that, like, 3D films that go hard on style, like in a sense where they kind of really differentiate themselves, are the best ones.
Mhm.
And The Incredibles is one of those where, like, I think a lot of films do it by not having human characters. Like, as I said, like, I think Kung Fu Panda 2 really holds up, but it's like, well, they're not human characters, so it's harder to kind of see the aging, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But with The Incredibles, is the way that the characters are designed is that they're human, yeah, but they're not Uncanny Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And also with the way they're animated, it doesn't age nearly as as badly as it could do. Like, I think it looks really good for a film that was made, you know.
I think it's a lot down to Brad Bird. Like, I looked up how he makes animated movies in general. They're all drawn out to be cartoons first and foremost, because that's the easiest way he finds to construct a scene, especially construct animated cartoons. Like, the way the action sequences are constructed, Frozen's ability to freeze and make different unique shapes, and just, you like The Incredibles.
Yeah, The Incredibles is a genuinely fantastic film.
Maybe it's wrong to put it this high above movies, which...
No, I think
this is my list of the day. And
as I said, it would be in my top 10 if I didn't have more interesting, because as you said, everyone knows The Incredibles. Yeah. It's like, well, like if I were to make my list for the most part is genuine, but really my top 20, 21 animated films, you could really switch, other than the top position, you could switch anything around and I'd be happy with, they're all kind of, again, to use a number scale, they're all 9s and 10s out of 10s in our books, so it's like, there's not too much to differentiate them.
I don't think for me...
The order doesn't really matter.
For me, 5 and 4, they're just movies to me which are just sort of like, I find them hard to talk about because they're just obviously great.
Yeah.
And me just saying, oh, the animation's beautiful. Well, of course the animation's beautiful, and of course the directing's great.
Yeah.
It just comes with... It just is what it is. And so my analysis and thoughts on it are not going to be as in-depth as, say, like April and the Extraordinary World, because that's just so unique and not obviously...
there's kind of more to talk about.
Yeah. And like, so, yeah. Number 5, it's incredible. It's just, you get it.
Yeah, I get it. It's a fantastic film. And, yeah.
Number 4 for you?
Love it. It's Such a Beautiful Day. I think I've talked about this previously on the podcast. It's bizarre. Again, I don't want to say too much because it is quite a short film and it isn't. There's not much to it, but what there is brilliant, and it's surprisingly moving. And it's just one guy. The animation is kind of stick figures, and it's this one guy who talks in a really quite annoying way and monologues the whole story about this guy who can't remember. He has issues, he's cognitive issues. I think he kind of gets hit on the head or something. Yeah, I think he gets in an accident or something and then he can't remember. And by God, is it damn moving. Like, Jesus Christ. I cried more at this film than I did Grave of the Fireflies. And Grave of the Fireflies...
You cried at this?
Yeah, really badly at the end, and this is the thing. I can't really say anything because without organically feeling it and kind of because stuff comes out of the blue because it's about a guy who doesn't really. It's kind of putting together his memory, but he's not putting it together because he just gets degeneratively worse and worse. But you're putting it together in your head, so to kind of say how, let's say, it ends or how a certain scene goes would be to rob you of the experience of watching it. I went into it with completely blind, no prior experience, and that was the perfect way to enjoy it. I would say though that kind of the way the audio is done, the way the kind of more technical elements, which again I don't know much about, is done really work for its favour. Like you have these really grating, horrible sounds, like this buzzing sound, and you really feel as if you're losing your mind, and you're kind of losing it with the person that is. And I didn't expect a film like it that's an hour long about one character. Stick figures.
Animation's very simplistic.
Oh yeah.
But I have a feeling that works opposed
really
to the depth and
works.
the complexity of the narrative, and so.
Yeah, and it just blew me away. I was so shocked at how good it was. It was just brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and again, I haven't really said much about it, but it's an experience. Like, there isn't much of a narrative other than a guy who's like losing, doesn't have grasp of his memories and doesn't really know how to order them, and a guy narrating that fact, and the guy kind of, well, dying's not in the right word, because I don't even know if that's really what you call it. It's deteriorating, yeah. It's brilliant.
My number 4 is, I'm not going to have a lot of thoughts because maybe not everyone loves this movie as much as I do, but I love Ratatouille.
It's a really good film.
It's a really good movie, and I think, yet again, I just think just the whole message about having a passion for something and just creating, and I literally do think the end bit with the critic is one of the best written things just ever. It just, so people might knock our podcast, Adam, but us making this is better than their criticism. And and everyone knows about it. It's beautiful. The voice acting is amazing. Brad Bird, he did The Incredibles as well. Just amazing director. He needs to do more things.
Yeah, definitely.
Like it's great. It's just so good. Do you have anything thoughts?
Ratatouille is fantastic. Yeah, I love it. It's probably like 22 on my list because I've got 21 films listed. It's up there. It's a fantastic film. Yeah. The critic thing at the end was just, I can't, because I was thinking, watching, I was like, how are they going to end this? Like, there's no Pixar way to end this. There's not really that much of, there's a villain, but you kind of get rid of him towards like the middle of the film, the chef that's a bit of a dick. And there's not really, like, where's this, they've introduced a critic, and it's like, well, a critic's not evil, like, how do you get rid of this enemy?
Yeah.
Like, and the way they did it of him, like, kind of, it really showed, because there's an element of, one could argue, like, that kind of food is quite pretentious, and art generally can be seen as pretentious, and there's almost this element of, like, well, art does stir up organic feelings, and this character that we've never seen before, that we think is this ominous, terrible person, comes in, he's like, he's the big baddie, and then he eats this piece of food, and he's transferred to his childhood, but we're transferred to his childhood. Like, that's the power that he presents that to us, because he's brought back to it. It stirs things up, and it's incredible.
Yeah, just the themes of the passion, art, and just it's beautiful. It's just a beautiful message, and it's a beautiful movie, and everyone's seen it.
Yeah,
and I really just adore it.
Maybe not. I do think, as far as I didn't watch it because I could have. I think I had a choice of watching it in cinema. I didn't, because it didn't. As far as all the Pixar films go, it didn't. Just from looking at it, it's like a rat cooking. And I watched it, and it's one of the better ones, one of the best. So
that's all I have to say about it, really.
Oh.
Your number 3?
Waltz with Bashir.
I didn't watch this because I knew Adam would definitely have it on his list.
It's fantastic. It's it's a documentary, which you don't see animated documentaries very often. Like, I suppose you could almost count those kind of CGI dinosaur documentaries, but that doesn't really.
No, it doesn't count. It doesn't count at all.
It doesn't count at all. But if you really, it doesn't count. But no, there isn't really anything that. I think you're thinking. Oh no, okay, it doesn't matter. Yeah, okay. Well, you don't see especially human documentaries, because there's an element of you putting a barrier between. You could view it as, if you're adding animation, you're putting a barrier between the people you're presenting in the documentary. But this film is the opposite. It really shows you in a way that you wouldn't be able to do because of the content matter, because of the things that are being explained. It shows them in a way that really works with the animation. It's a bizarre animation style. I'd almost say it's quite bad in a way, but
it's
works.
very rough. It's very sort of kind of, it's very graphic novel-y.
Yeah, it
it's
is.
presented.
Yeah, and you could almost, on first glance, be a bit like, "Oh, is this going to be good?" But the film is about in the Lebanese. Is it Lebanese?
Lebanon? Yeah.
Yeah,
Lebanese
was it
conflict.
Lebanese? Yeah, one of the Lebanese conflicts. There were these Christian. They were called phalangers. Is that it?
You've seen it, not me.
Yeah, Christian phalangers who were like militant Christians who effectively genocided a bunch of Palestinians, and the main character in the film, whose name they all have foreign names, and I can't remember the main guy in the film. He was an army guy for the Israeli armed forces, and the Israeli armed forces were like encircling this camp where this genocide happened. I don't think they actually were part of it. It's been a while since I've seen it, but they weren't a part of the genocide, but they effectively kind of watched as it happened and really intervene. And the whole thing about the documentary is that he doesn't remember his time there. He doesn't remember it. He was there, and he kind of goes around interviewing people about the conflict, about what happened in this camp, and it's incredibly emotional. It's very disturbing. It's horrible, but at the same time, it kind of, there's this, because it is real people's stories, there's this real genuine feelings of kind of grief about it, and because largely he documents the views of the Israeli people that were surrounding it, that let it happen. So you kind of get these really horrible, like grief-stricken kind of people talking about something that they should have stopped and that they should have stepped in on, but they didn't. And it's hot. It was very, of course, it's anti-war, but it's very clever in the. It's hard to describe. Like, it's clever. What's just clever? I kind of started that sentence, but then I kind of started thinking about it. And
I had a question for you. What is the advantages of it being animation as compared to just a normal documentary?
It allowed them to dramatise what the people were saying, because they don't have footage of what the people are talking about in these interviews, in a way that, like, you could do a reenactment, but how shit a fucking actor reenactment, but with it animated, it could really present it on its own level. So like, you would have the person who's being interviewed, because you've animated them, you can then put them in the situation they're talking about. So there's that continuity. If you were to do it with, actors, it just wouldn't work. Like, you wouldn't have that continuity even with a reenactment. You would have to imagine it in your head, which is fine, like, if people are describing things, but it really paints the picture of what happened. And I don't know 100% about this, but I think he must have, like, worked with these people on the film, so they kind of knew what it looked like and were kind of happy with the way it was presented. And you can be a bit more artistic with it as well. Like, there's a point where he's like describing a dream that he had about like having sex with a woman, effectively, and it's presented in really. And I hate to use the word beautiful for a film like this, because it's a horrible tragedy that happened to real people. So to say that a piece of art surrounding it is beautiful seems a bit wrong, but it is, in a way, in a bleak, horrible kind of way. It's presented in such a raw way that it's impossible not to kind of appreciate the artistry, but it is a real event that people died. And one of the things at the end of the film, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, is that instead they cut to real footage of the genocide, and I'm almost like, I don't know if that was a good creative choice.
Because it breaks the...
Yeah, because it kind of breaks the animation. It's like, oh, here's footage of it. And in a way, that's very effective, because like, oh wow, that's terrible. But it being animated didn't really deteriorate how terrible it was. Like, it didn't really hit home. It hit home when they were describing, a guy shooting an old man in a building. Like, that was as bad when it was animated than, because it's still real life. I don't know, like, it wasn't... I didn't find myself needing that. Like, it could have been... It felt a bit on the nose. But again, like, it was a real event that happened. So I always think that's not a null. It's a bit of a null criticism because you don't really, as an artistic choice, I can kind of be a bit like, well, I don't necessarily agree with it, but from a documentarian point of view, I think it works fine. So I don't know. It's really interesting though, because I would say the moral theme is not really about genocide is bad, or obviously it's like, well, these people should have intervened. Like they stood by and watched a genocide happen effectively. Like they didn't do it themselves, but the reason he blocked it out was because he felt as culpable as those who had committed it. Like because the point of the film is that he's blocked these memories out, so he's trying to find kind of what happened, and eventually throughout the film. And this is another thing that's really effective about the animation is that throughout the film you get these kind of sporadic like little sections of what he does remember, and you kind of piece it together, and with animation you can really get this continuous thing going. Like the only thing you can remember is flares or just bright lights, and he kind of eventually finds out that they're flares that they shot up to light up the area, which effectively helped the genocide because they lit up the area that people were being genocided in. It's a really horrible film, but it's brilliantly done, very emotional.
Communicates the message
really good on a psychological level because there's interviews with a trauma psychologist as well. It's really well done. It's a fantastic film.
That's been on my watch list for a while. I'll definitely get around to it. My number 3 is, it might be surprising to have this quite high up because it's a Batman movie.
Oh.
It's from the animated series from the 90s. They made a movie called Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. And I think the reason I had this so low, I don't say this is the best Batman, definitely movie, TV show, whatever ever made. The fact that these days for me Batman is overplayed out. I'm very sick and tired of he can do anything if he prepares for it. He's the best guy ever made. I feel for me that really disconnects to who Bruce Wayne is as a person, as a man.
And also,
in these depictions he is like that. How he's the best guy ever. He doesn't care about anyone else. This is the best depiction of Batman and Bruce Wayne for me, because it shows him so human and so flawed. Like he normally questions his morals of should I be doing this, and even he knows it's the right thing, but in this movie he kind of because the whole sort of premise as to why he's questioning whether he should do it or not is because he meets a woman, because it's kind of an origin story when he's sort of 20 and onwards, and he meets this woman he falls in love with, and he debates with his parents. He's having internal conflicts of I know I promised you I'd do this, I'd clean up the streets of Gotham, but is it worth me sacrificing my happiness for this? And you have the Dark Knight where they do mention it, but the relationship never feels real.
No.
This, you feel Bruce's pain and his love, and there's a scene in it when she leaves him for a reason I won't get into because I can't just get so plotty.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, I'll do it. I'll become this vigilante. And it's a scene where he puts on his mask the first time. He puts it on and he just turns over, and because Alfred's watching him, get prepared, and he looks over at Alfred, and Alfred has this look of just shock and terror, and looks upon what this man he's raised and this man he's loved and what he's become. And it really humanised Bruce Wayne and Batman for me. On top of that, it's beautifully animated. The 90s animation style of Batman is just, it's so stylised and fluid. And the voice acting, it has the original voice actor, it has Mark Hamill, the Joker, and it's such an amazing film. I think it's really underrated because no one really talks about it. And for a character that I used to really care about, I've kind of just grown off Batman. Although I can always come back to this, and it's safe and
it's always the definitive Batman for you.
It's home for me.
Yeah.
And maybe it's unusual to have this so far up a superhero movie, but
what do you care what other people think?
I'm just saying I connect to this so much.
Look, our favourite, because you've said yours is the same. Our top one is going to be no one else's top favourite animated
Maybe,
film.
but I feel like that may be more understandable than this Batman movie from the 90s.
Yeah, I think from what you've described it sounds really good.
Yeah, and maybe
he's very good at picking stuff up.
Maybe it's just me looking into this too much, but it's just really personal to me. And it's Batman movie about a new villain who's in town, and they're terrorising these specific mob bosses, and it's just the only reason I like it is just because how it delves into Bruce Wayne, and that's all I have to say about it. It's an amazing movie, and I love it a lot. It's more of a passing option,
but it does sound really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 2, Princess Mononoke.
Haven't seen it. I really want to.
It's really good. It's a fantastic film. It's one of I think it was the first Studio Ghibli film I watched. No, Spirited Away was, but that was like when I was 12. Princess Mononoke was like, I'd say my real first time thinking, oh, this is a Studio Ghibli film. It's the best environmental film ever made, which all his films have. Yeah, all his films have that theme. Really, he's very clearly got this. Like Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind has that theme. It's post-apocalyptic, basically, about environment and being careful with the environment. But what I really like about this film is that there aren't really any bad guys. Like, there's just different perspectives. Like, one of the things that really annoys you about shitty environmental film stuff is just this whole, like, oh, humans are evil, oh, these monsters, and they just painfully, in painful detail just go, humans are just trying to get by. Humans are animals to kind of, like, okay, there's this split, our human kingdom and the animal kingdom, but the humans are just, trying to live, and okay, they're expanding, and they have this, they almost, like, romanticize the passion of expansion and the passion of industrialization, and the like the main villain, quote unquote, is this woman who is, she forms a leper colony and saves the lepers and points out to the main hero of the story, who I'd almost say is like a silent protagonist. He's not silent, he talks, but he's really not the most interesting part of the film. He's very much a vehicle for for whoever's watching to kind of see the world. Like, his journey isn't really that interesting, but the world that he explores is so wonderful, and they really capture, the beauty of nature, but also kind of the brutality of it, and, like, the boars are very, what's the word, kind of, dangerous, they break shit, and, the wolves kill shit, and, like, they're brutal. There's a brutality to nature, and they kind of show that while also giving humans their fair due of, like, well, actually humans aren't just evil consumers that just want to destroy everything. There's a passion to it that isn't evilly motivated. This woman who is kind of, it's not really the bad guy, like, I'd say antagonist in a sense from a storyline perspective, but she's just trying to kind of do the best for her, like, city that she runs. It's not really a city, a town. It's like, she's not trying to, like, she didn't really okay, she's destroying nature in the process, but it's not the fundamental drive, and it kind of really presents those issues in a really nice way that doesn't really happen a lot, and it doesn't need to happen again because it's a fantastic film, so there's no reason to retread it, because the whole environmental thing can get really fucking boring. But also just the character design of the kind of creatures, there's the spirit of the nature spirit is this kind of, at night it's this thing that walks across the sky. It's like this translucent blue pattern thing. It's just beautiful. And then this kind of, like, creepy or eerie, like, deer thing with, like, a human face in the day, and it's like, it's really creepy, but it really works visually. And, like, when it steps, like, wherever it steps, and things grow, and then when it lifts its feet, they die. It's like, it's really just attention to those kind of details. Like, there's the spirits of the forest are these, like, little, like, ornament like things with, like, 3 holes in their head, and it's just eerie, but it's kind of, but beautiful, and, like, these, like, annoying but kind of, what's the way of putting it, kind of, like, homely, like, ringing that they do, and it's just a wonderful film. It's so beautiful. The story's kind of the weakest element, but not in a bad way. Like, everything is so good, the designs, the world, but the story's not really quite good. It's like, you get these characters, there's this conflict between the humans want to develop and expand, whereas, as they expand, the nature spirits kind of lose their power and lose their energy and there's this genuine conflict between them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just fantastic. I love it as a film. It's it's one of my favourite. Well, it's one of my favourite animated films. But I would always go maybe as far as to say
Favourite films?
it goes into that list.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, anything on this list kind of does, but it's up there in my favourite films as well because it is just so well put together as a film. It's so it's beautiful. The animation, the design is just so wonderful, and like I would almost say iconic. Like I think. Like if people saw like still from Princess Mononoke, I think they go, "Oh, that's Princess
Yeah, I haven't
Mononoke."
seen Princess Mononoke.
Yeah,
and
you
I
kind of
can
know
tell
what.
it looked like,
Yeah, you know what it looks like as a film. It's so wonderful, and I think a lot of people put Spirited Away higher,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Spirited Away's story is kind of so absent almost. It's a beautiful film, but I kind of found myself liking this one more because it has got more of a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's very good. I enjoy it.
Okay. Number 2, I think it's the last one. Well, because we took up Book of Persona number 1, so it's the last.
So we've got the same number one.
It's Mary and Max.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's
film.
just.
I love it. Again,
It's kind of like if I were to boil down, like, you know, a beautiful film. This is just the antithesis. What's the word I'm looking for?
I think that's right.
It's just.
Antithesis.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's just. How to describe it? I can start with the plot. It's about a little girl called Mary who lives in Australia, and she wants a pen pal because she has quite a dysfunctional family. Like she doesn't get along with her mum too well, and everything's a bit. And she's very curious about the world, and she wants to know more about it. And so she just rips out a page from like an American phone book and picks like a random name, which is a guy called Max, who's like a 50-year-old man, like an old Jewish man who lives in America, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman.
And he's autistic.
And he's autistic. He has like, you know, mental problems, and he's quite obese, and he's very anxious about things. And they've just become pen pals, this little Australian girl and this 50-year-old American man. And it's not creepy, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Isn't there even a part in the film where like the mum finds out?
And she's like, "What the fuck you doing?
Yeah,
This guy's some weirdo
creep,
trying to, like, you know, groom you and stuff."
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And
It's such a wonderful film.
It's the interactions of him trying to describe the world to her and how his upbringing and his worldviews are, how they came about.
He's very cynical.
He's a very cynical man, but at the same time, it's like they bring out, like, her talking to him, trying to bring him out of his shell more and tries to sort of explore the world and not being as anxious or depressed. And his problems makes her even more curious and develops into. She just becomes a psychologist, doesn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, and oh no, I won't say that. Yeah, she becomes a psychologist. She kind of gets out there. It is lovely.
And
it is so nice.
And they shape each other, and and it's also funny, and it's naturally funny. It's also depressing.
It's very moving. It's
and
it's every emotion. Really.
And the ending is on point. Fantastic ending. It's the perfect way to end the movie. It's just, I was so satisfied watching it.
You want to spoil it because it is such a good ending, but you don't want to spoil it because you want people to experience it. It's such a fantastic film. I knew it was going to be on yours, so I didn't put it in my top 10, but it is so good. I love it.
Tear to my eye.
Yeah, definitely. I love that film.
Can't recommend it all.
Yeah.
Really ugly animation though, but not in a negative way.
The animation's really well done. It's more just like the character design's ugly.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
It's the bit when, like, at the start when the narrator's talking and she's talking about Mary's granddad, goes, "Granddad likes skinny dipping in the pool in the cold waters, which made his nipples pointy," and his nipples just like go bang at the screen like springs. You're like, "Ooh, that's off-putting," but it totally works. It's black and white, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's black and white and brown.
And grey. I think there's red at one point.
There's red in the lipstick of like the lady, but
yeah, there is. Remember that now.
Also, Philip Seymour Hoffman's fantastic as Max.
He's
good in everything.
In everything he's good.
Even in the fucking Hunger Games movies, he's the best bit of number 2, but whatever. But
also, I lied about which my favourite film was. I said adaptation. It's actually The Master, which is
Master's your favourite. Your favourite film.
Yeah.
It's always to watch it.
It's a really fantastic film.
And number 1.
Oh.
It took me a while to sort of really figure out what number 1 was.
The pure brilliance of this film.
yeah, the more it's just been on my mind since we talked about it last.
Yeah.
And when you said it, it's just perfect. There's not a scene in it which you wouldn't take out. And
That's my thing.
that's the thing.
So good.
I can pick a hole in every single movie I've got on this list.
Yeah, same.
Apart from this one, there's nothing I'd change. I love everything in this movie.
And this is
Fantastic Mr. Fox
yeah,
by Wes
Fantastic
Anderson.
Mr. Fox by Wes Anderson.
It's just
Fantastic.
it's so
film.
good. It's
It is. I literally.
words lose me.
It's funny because I always thought about like, you know, because I've thought about doing a YouTube channel. I was like, oh, if I were to read a film, you know how you sometimes like would just have a scene to portray how good it is. I was like, oh, well, I'll choose this scene. Oh no, I'll choose this scene. Oh wait, I can just show the whole film because it's so perfect. Like every scene is like a snapshot of what a scene should be and what a scene should achieve. And that could be like, you know, there are some films where it has excellent scenes and the whole thing together doesn't work. But the film together is so tight. It's a short film, but even then,
15, hour 20.
hour 20.
Yeah.
And it's just so, it doesn't even feel like that. It's so quick and it's so good. It's so everything happens perfectly in the right order, and there isn't anything that's too flabby. There's nothing that isn't well done enough. It's like just knows what it's doing.
The character interactions are so
and it's
unique
so
and on
funny
point.
as well.
It's so funny. But it's not like I'm going to say it's like overtly meant to be a comedy though. Either.
No, it isn't like joke after joke after joke. Like, haha, here, laugh at this. But and it's genuinely emotional.
And
like
has the amazing scene with the werewolf. Or just the wolf.
That'd be
I meant the wolf.
Bizarre
I meant
twist.
the wolf.
Yeah.
The wolf. And
Well, a lot of people don't like that scene, and it is a bit. It is an odd scene.
It's weirdly out of place, but
Yeah.
I remember it just left such an impression on me.
Yeah.
Even though I was quite young and I wasn't old enough to really understand what it meant or signifies, and I was thinking it had an impact on me. I was like, ooh, that's the thing.
Yeah. And this film is one of the most awfully marketed films I've ever seen. It was marketed in the worst way possible. Like, I don't understand. And it's film studio, what are they called again? Flashlight or something?
Can't remember.
They've got a few films that I've thought, wow, this is like really badly advertised. It's awful. Like the trailer for this film made me think I'm never gonna watch that. It looks fucking awful. And it's my favourite animated film. It's so brilliant. And like I love every scene's perfect, but the breakfast scene, it's like
which one?
The one where
the first one.
It's just
where he's reading
brilliant.
the newspaper.
Where he's reading the newspaper, he's eating the food.
Doesn't someone read this? Just like
yeah, it's like everything's going on, like stuff going on in the background. You know, the Ash walks out like
in his cape.
And
it's like, do you think I'm an athlete? What?
That is the one criticism I've kind of heard, where I'm like, I can kind of see that. Like, I don't agree with it, but that his development didn't really make sense, because you would assume that it would kind of go around the route of going like, you know, oh, it doesn't really matter that you're an athlete, but at the end, he kind of doesn't really earn his.
I don't know.
I don't agree with that, because I think the point that people that missed the point, that was never the message. It was that he needed to learn.
He's different.
No, but
well, that too.
Like he needed to learn that he kind of had to learn off his cousin. Like he was, rather than resenting the person that was better than him, he had to, you know, swallow his pride and actually ask for help. And it's kind of like.
Although I do love that bit in the mine over there. Kind of quoting the mine over there. And he talks to his son, and she's kind of like, you know, it's okay just to be a little different. I'm recreating the hand movements as well. That's how ingrained this movie is into my head. He's like, but I'm not. He goes, yes, we all are, especially him.
Yeah.
Points at Mr. Fox.
Oh, and the voice acting in this film is absolutely incredible.
And they got a lot of the voice actors to recreate.
Yeah, to actually do the
like,
scenes.
They made George Clooney like do a roly-poly on the floor.
Yeah. That shows as well, because George Clooney is so fantastic in this film.
He's like
I don't really. What's he been in that's really good?
He's in a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah, probably, but I can't really think of much. And he's just so fantastic in this. And that's funny because it's fantastic as well.
How many times have you fucking say that joke? We used it with The Incredibles like 3 times.
Oh, it's so good. I
Animation's it's so
amazing.
Beautiful. The music is just. Oh, God. It's like it's Roald Dahl, completely removed from the book, but take the basic essence.
But yeah, it kind of has the essence, and that's always my thing. Like with adaptations, is like I don't really care. There's no point adapting it if you're just going to recreate it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it exists in its own thing. Adaptations is best when you adapt it, you change it a little bit, you kind of steer things away. And this is the thing. It's almost like someone read Fantastic Mr. Fox as an adult and went, "That's a bit bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a bit stupid. Not stupid. That's too harsh, but kind of like, well, that's a bit childish." And then made a film with that opinion ingrained into the film. Because you've got to talk about fucking bogus
Boris Bonson.
Yeah, so good. Oh, they're such a they are the funniest villains.
What's it kind of like? They come through all the food and everything. They're like, we got everything. Then it cuts to being on the phone. He's like, they took everything. There's a freak out, just breaks everything in his room.
It's so
and
good.
but to me, Boris is looking like, what the fuck?
Oh, it's so funny. It's hilarious. I love that film. I love it. I don't know, like, because I've watched it like 5 times now.
I've watched it more than 5 times. I've seen it.
Maybe
because I watched it when I was a child as well.
Yeah, I watched it like as an adult almost, and then was like, oh, it's fantastic. I love this film.
So let us dance on.
Yeah, the soundtrack as well is so good.
Yeah, lots of bits like it's just bits just ingrained in my head, like the kind of like it's like, I'm pregnant. Wow, you are glowing, and it just replaces them with the glowing statue.
Oh yeah.
And the comedy,
so
it's real quirky but dry.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's not quite, because quirky things generally annoy me, but it's not at that level of quirky. Like I would almost say the quirkiness is in the visual comedy bits, but the actual kind of verbal comedy isn't. It's not trying to be like lol so quirky.
Well, I do the fact that like they're quite aware it's a PG movie, and so it's just going kind of. Are you cussing me? You trying to cuss me out? Well, cuss you.
It's a great scene as well when it's like the badger's like the secretary just sat there like
the bit when like they're all like going through mine shafts and tunnels and stuff, and like the mole kind of goes, "Do you see a little sunlight?" Kind of goes, "Mole, you can't see anyway. Your eyes can barely pick up light." Shut to the point, damn it! I love it.
Yeah.
It's just if you haven't seen it, just watch it.
Yeah,
what the fuck are you doing?
It's on Netflix. It's an hour and 20 long.
Yeah, just fuck all the dogs. Watch.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I was so hyped for Isle of Dogs, and Isle of Dogs is a good film.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to diss it that much, but I think maybe he got too bold with it.
Was he given too much of a bigger scope? And
Yeah, maybe he was given more of a budget.
There's more to mess up because there's more elements.
Well, there's more. There was just more. It was longer.
Yeah.
And it being longer didn't help it because there was so much to. There was an excellent story in Isle of Dogs that was told over 2 hours that should have been told in an hour and 20, and half the characters cut out.
Yeah.
Like, it was trying to go too hard on the like setting and kind of really fleshing it out. Where it's like, well, you don't really need to do that. Whereas this film really knows what it is. It's like, okay, these are our characters. Okay, there's a supporting cast. Like, it's what I was saying about the character, Owen Wilson's character, the
coach.
The coach. He's in it for like a minute, but you get him as a character. He does something. He interacts with the characters. He does it in the end. Whereas Isle of Dogs, there are 5 characters, like the 5 dogs in the film. Kind of, one of them mattered. All of the others kind of didn't do anything, and they were in it for the whole thing. I kind of can feel more for a character that was in a film for a minute because they did so much to make sure his character, he was like doing stuff, and he interacted with the character for a minute, and it's like, oh, I like that character, and I get him. Like, I get what kind of character he is.
One of my favourite characters is Kyle. the possum. And like there's a bit
it's
when
so
the
funny.
Foxy's just going to every single animal and giving them the Latin name. Then like Carl's like, what about me, Foxy? And he goes, I'm sure they had possums in ancient Rome. It's like, what do I do, Foxy? You're like, you don't really do anything, Carl. You're just nice, and you're just.
No, it's like, you're reliable.
You're reliable.
And then he gives him a credit card. He's like, how the hell did you get this? I have a good credit score.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, it's such a funny film. It's such a lovely film, and it's so
warm.
like you know.
That's how I feel watching
I was
it.
talking to my family about this yesterday. I was like, I hate feel-good films. You know, films that market themselves as feel-good films, like Mamma Mia, The Greatest Showman. It's like, it's the feel-good film of the year, and it's like, it's gonna be shit. But you just know, like, it's gonna be absolutely terrible. You're gonna sit there, and you want to kill yourself halfway through, but you're with your family, so you have to.
So you can't kill yourself.
No. So it's awful, and you just sat there like, oh my god, this is awful. Why did I bother putting this on? Oh, it's not making me feel good at all.
Mm-hmm.
This is a feel good film.
Yeah.
Like it's not. Is it a feel good film of the year? It is a feel good film. It's great. It's really fun.
Yeah.
It's an enjoyable film, and I love it.
I love it too. That was good. I think it's a good way to end.
Yeah, that's a good way. Well, we got to the end of our list, so yeah.
I think.
Do you have any animated films you like? We will ignore them. And
especially if it's Coco or Inside Out, then just what the
Yeah,
fuck. Unsubscribe.
Well, Inside Out's not the what. It's just.
No, it's just.
It was so subpar.
If you're a pleb, don't bother tuning in.
Wow.
We didn't need your views, even though we got 5. We didn't need them. We don't fucking need them.
Well,
But
yeah,
no,
I think I went well.
Thanks for listening. I think I'm going to split this into the animation segment and the top 10.
Yeah.
Because this is a 3-hour podcast.
3 hours? Jesus Christ. We did it.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. Actually,
Do you want to, I don't know, I was going to say, do you want to do an ending to the first one then, if you're going to split it in 2, but fuck that.
No, I enjoyed this.
Just put part 1 and part 2.
No, I enjoyed this. I had actually a lot of fun
Yeah, it
with
was
this
fun.
episode.
It was fun.
This is the best one we've
But
done.
3 hours? Jesus Christ. We're getting Joe Rogan levels.
You talk a lot.
No.
Don't have a problem with that. Really do. But no, thank you for
I'm
listening.
surprised because I was so tired.
Me too. I'm tired now.
Like last 2 days I've hardly slept, so I was like, oh god, I'm going to be flagging for this one.
I've been up for
Put all my energy into this.
like 13 hours. But no, thank you for listening. And
Yeah.
we have been Screen Podcast.
We've been, Screen Podcast. Subscribe,
like for more
comment, for more comments.
Favourite.
and
Tweet
like
at
us.
Nina Palais so you can
See if she'll come on the podcast.
podcast.
That was so funny. She actually did. We've got like
Come.
40 viewers. Like, hey Nina.
Yeah, come into my mum's dining room, filled covered in shit.
Well, I feel as if she lives in like America, so it's not like she's gonna. She flies over to listen to our shitty podcast, not listen to it, be on it.
Oh, tops to you, Nina Palais. You know,
Great. I was so surprised that you really liked that film.
I did. It was a good movie. Nina Palais. See, we like your things, Nina
We love
Palais.
it. We love it. Very fun.
Thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode,
See
which
you,
will
yeah.
be about something.
Probably a
We'll
week.
figure it out. Bye.
Bye.